Welcome back to Interpersonal Effectiveness. And the next skill we're going to talk about is modulating intensity. So modulating is kind of wavering. It's finding where to go. So this will be on a scale of 1 to 10. So modulating is the idea that you're able to kind of change between a 1 and a 2 or a 1 and a 10 and kind of work your way through it as needed. So if that word isn't familiar to you, kind of a little bit of an odd choice in my opinion of a word to use, but it's about asking for getting your needs met by modulating the intensity. So when making a request to do something between a scale of 1 and 10, and this might seem kind of a little hokey at first, but we'll talk about some examples. There's two things to look at: the urgency of the need and the level of vulnerability, which is essentially the actual need of the item. So as an example, if you realize that it's almost your kid's bedtime and you realize that you have nothing in the house tomorrow for breakfast because you ran out of groceries a little early, your urgency for your need might be like a 9. Like, ooh, maybe at the last minute you can go through a drive-thru on the way to school. Maybe your kids would totally just eat lasagna leftovers for breakfast and it's not the most urgent thing. They'll, survive without having, cereal or oatmeal or whatever you feed them for breakfast. And then number 2 is the level of vulnerable criteria. So kind of what the need is. So not necessarily the quickness of it, but what actually needs to be done in the situation. So the need is that you kind of need food in your house. And you know what? It's not really just breakfast, but like, what are you guys going to eat for lunch or dinner? Or do you have, milk for a baby, or, a beverage, milk for your coffee in the morning or something. So if you, let's say you're in a relationship and you need to tell the other person, hey, can you go run to the store? Your request for them to run to the store, between the urgency of the need, you don't have anything to feed your kids in the morning, and you don't really have, there's a need for that, not just a time need, but a need for the actual item. That might be a 9, like, hey, you need to go to the store and go pick up some cereal and some milk for my coffee in the morning. So that's an example. I'll kind of give more. I often will tell people to kind of think about something that they needed a request for. It could be something big like getting help moving or getting a ride somewhere. And it could be kind of a simple request about, you wanted lasagna for dinner and you were asking your partner for, who was thinking about cooking chicken for the night. So don't think about anything sort of super, super big or anything kind of too meaty or something that would be maybe kind of emotionally triggering or sensitive. And think about the urgency of that need. So was it something that you needed taken care of, like food in your house? Or do you have tickets to a concert that's 3 months out? And maybe you're saying, oh my God, please come to the concert. It's in September and I really need someone to go with me. That urgency of in September, for the most part, isn't really an urgency. That might be a request that you ask at like a 2 or 3. Maybe there's some people that you'd rather go to the concert with, so you might be a little bit more interested in it, which would be number 2, the level of vulnerability. Concert's 3 months out, but there's only a few friends that like metal music or like a specific artist or live close enough or would be available at that date and time because other people are on vacation. But as a whole, asking someone to go to a concert that's a couple of months out might be a 1 or a 2. Maybe if you ask a few people at a 2 or 3 and they turn you down and it's a week before, you might want to be at an 8 or a 9 and be like, I really need you to come to the concert with me. Maybe at that point you'd be willing to negotiate price or offer to pick them up even if they live kind of further out because, you at a 2, the level of vulnerability criteria, you might really want to go to this concert. So think about a time you requested something. I also will tell people, if you can't think of that, think of a time that something was requested of you. It doesn't need to be anything sort of super big or anything, but when someone asked you to do something, and kind of think like, was that, a 2 or 3? Hey, dishes are starting to build up, and I'm kind of working in the yard. When you get a chance, can you take care of the dishes? The urgency of that is there's a couple of dishes in the sink. It's not that you don't have a fork to eat with because they're all filthy, or that it's smelling or getting bugs or anything like that. And the level of vulnerability is, the dishes are going to eventually need to get done, and the other person is working on something else. So this might be a question of, fairness. That person does this and I take care of, the other thing. So think of a time and use those two kind of criterias. Often, like, thinking about things at a 1 to 10. The other activity I have done with people will be kind of pairing off and just thinking about requests and let's say that I need help moving. Just something most people don't necessarily want to help with, and ask me at a 1 to help you move. At a 1, that might be I don't know if you're around, but, I could potentially use some help moving. Not really sure what day or time. Let me know if you're free. It's not really much of a request. And a 10 would be like, moving is tomorrow. I need you to be at my place at 2 o'clock. Maybe not the best request. And both of those might not get the response you want. A last minute response might be a no, or that's not really a question, that's rude. And that light 1 question doesn't even seem to me like much of a question that, personally, for me, I wouldn't even kind of register that as a question or request. So kind of think about it and asking for things, or the way that people ask you for things. Also, different conversations you have, asking for a raise at a 1 probably won't get you a raise, but neither will asking for a raise at a 10. So what a 5 look like? I've worked really, really hard at this job. I think that I am deserving of a raise. Maybe a 7 could look like, I've worked really hard at this job for the last 3 years, and I have worked on the following projects, 1, 2, and 3. I took our sales goals from a 5 to a 20. I've earned the company X amount. I redid the website. I've been staying late for the last 6 months to finish this project. I've taken on the role of a supervisor. I've trained other employees. Maybe that might be an 8. That might be a little bit more intense, and also kind of an effective way at dealing with it. So think about times in your life that you modulated your intensity. Of course, in doing this, you might ask your best friend to move at an 8, where an acquaintance, you might be throwing it out there. It might be okay to ask it a 2. In your romantic relationship, you might make requests at a 3 or 4. And at work, you might need to be a little bit more firm and make requests at a 7 or 8. So keep in mind, there is kind of no right or wrong. Most requests that are 1 or 2 or 9 and 10 might be too intense or not valued as a request. So keep that in mind. But as a whole, it's okay to kind of modulate between different people and different environments and that kind of thing. So this is the DBT interpersonal effectiveness skill of modulating your intensity.